been there all the way through.
Oh, excellent.
It's off your beat.
Sit dressed to his beard.
I'm just saying it's off here.
That all comes off every day now.
Every day?
Every 2 days it's got to go.
Oh my God, that's
I get a 5 o'clock shadow
on your head.
every day at 5. To be fair, we've got together to shoot our first video introducing our events, and I think this kind of sums it up really well. Because I overdressed as I always do, although not wearing a collar, as you said.
Yeah.
You've got your legs out, come straight from a golf course somewhere.
It's sunny out. It's sunny out in Manchester. When the last time we had sun?
And David's got it nailed on. The ROI, like the cost of it is so much better than that's it. So listen, I will get this paragraph. The performer here, I can't even read a paragraph. I'll get this out, no problem.
Did you not do acting?
No. You did?
So the reason why we're here today is obviously to talk about the next events that we're doing in this series. The first one being in London on the 2nd of July.
I think from a delegate point of view, I really find it hard to understand why you wouldn't just go and talk to a few sponsors for that value as a charitable concern.
There isn't events of this kind. No. This is something completely different. We are pioneering something new here, and I think that what I said has caught people's imagination. I think once we're able to deliver it on a bigger scale, there's nothing stopping us going further afield. So Jess, reflecting back on our first Utopia Cyber Gives Back event, just over a month ago in Manchester, what do you think made it such a good event for the delegates on the night?
Yeah, for me, a regular going to these kind of events, it's massive because the massive difference. A lot of these kind of events, people just turn up for the meal. You know, some people go along and do a talk or, talk to each other, but generally they don't walk out much from it. Whereas this, my opinion is that a lot of people got more than just going and having a nice meal. They got the ability to be able to talk to vendors and find out off other people how they dealt with those vendors, which is a big change, because generally you turn up to an event and the event is all about one vendor. This is about multiple vendors giving you the information, and even if you weren't interested in the products there, me, if I was in that situation, I'd be learning about the products, and my next role or later on in the time in my business, that product could be useful. So I get to learn not just off the people who are interested in that tool, but also regarding what the tool can do for me. And it really made a difference for those people. That's the feedback I've had from the people that attended the event.
Brilliant. David? No?
Yeah, for me it was the peer conversations around the dinner table. We had some nice questions asked around the dinner table, which prompted some great conversation, and we got to hear from a peer group realistically about their actual experiences. It wasn't a big group. Everybody was pretty talkative, to be perfectly honest. Usually at these events you find there's 2 or 3 people who dominate the conversation. It just didn't seem to be like that, to be perfectly honest. So I really enjoyed the peer conversation around the dinner table, and then the conversation pre-dinner as well was just nice, generic chatting. That was lovely to get to know some new people and get to talk about it in a cyber context. It was great.
I think for me, obviously my sort of area of expertise would be the sponsors side, and so the feedback from all of the sponsors was how immediately informal it was. It didn't feel very forced, and I do think the fact that everyone's there for a common cause of the charity was a real benefit. And I think also the idea of doing the speed dates or the speed picks in the way that we did. Normally that's a very isolated thing, and you were doing it as a team of 4 of you. And I think that opened up the conversation way down. All the sponsors said.
Everybody I spoke to loved it. That was not just the actual attendees, but also the sponsors. They loved it because of the fact that they could get a lot of information across quickly, but also having retrospective response back, because everybody learns off everybody else.
Yeah, you're right.
Having those number of people next to each other, you might not even be interested in the product, but you went, oh, actually, I never even thought about that, because you're already learning what everybody else's experience. It was brilliant. That it really was a good idea to implement that.
I think as well with these things, this speed dating thing has been introduced over the last few years, and it works in some ways, but you're getting isolated to certain individuals.
Correct.
So you're not guaranteed to meet with the delegates that that are definitely going to be interested in the product. With this, every delegate met every sponsor at least for that 10 minutes. But as you said, there was great conversations that carried on into the networking that followed.
100%.
So I think everyone kind of got that full. No one was sold too much to, but they had the opportunity to speak to who they wanted.
And as a delegate turning up, you actually got to learn the other people about their business when you're doing those speed dating. So even that helped from the scenario that you're going, oh, actually, you guys doing that? Because most of these events, you just turn up and you recognise the person, but do you really know what the company does? No.
I've been to a load of events where that speed dating thing, you go and you're standing in front of a vendor, and it's you and the vendor.
Yeah.
They think of something to say for 10 minutes, and then the whistle goes, and you go and do the same thing somewhere else.
And then you might meet somebody outside, but you don't really get to know them.
No.
Whereas that enabled that kind of discussion to occur, which was brilliant.
Yeah.
So I think, with the events and speaking to the sponsors, the dropout rate since the pandemic has been pretty massive. I think 30 to 40% is typical. We thought that 19 were going to turn up, and we had 17 delegates turn up on day, which is fantastic. Yeah. I think a big factor in that was the fact that they knew they were going to this sort of new movement of event that was about looking after charities, and knew that the charity was going to be there on the night. How do you think that sort of impacted the delegates as a whole? And on a personal level, Lee, how would that impact you?
Yeah, for me, having that charity there showed the fact that it wasn't just us talking flannel. Realistically, we were actually coming out and saying, these are the people that we actually supported. But for me, from a personal scenario, obviously that charity was one that I wanted to push for, because unfortunately, my mum spent the last days of her life in that hospice. But watching the video and them explaining what they do brought it back to me. And I actually had to leave the room because I became very emotional on it. But the reason why is because they explained what they did, and everybody understood why it was important. And I think for us as an organisation, we're looking at making sure that all the companies or the charities that we would support with this will have that kind of personal kind of impact.
I spoke to Vicky from the charity, and she showed me the video that she referenced the video that she was going to show, and I was kind of in two minds about whether we should do it or not. David, you were stood as part of that crowd, watching it. Obviously, and I was front. You were stood as part of that crowd. How did you feel they reacted to it? And again, from a delegate perspective, how did you react?
It was pretty quiet around the crowd, right? And that video was quite powerful, to be perfectly honest. And you could really see the crowd get behind the charity, understand what they were trying to achieve, and understand why they were in the room at that time, sponsoring the charity and helping them along. The money that we managed to give to the charity on the night meant a huge amount to the hospice, to be perfectly honest. And I'm really proud of the way that everybody was there, talked about it being a charitable event without much prompting, to be perfectly honest, before we sat down for dinner and before we had the speech from the hospice kind of thing. Yeah. Everybody was engaged in the prospect and the idea of doing something that actually a lot of us had probably done before, but with this charitable offering at the same time.
Yeah, and the interesting thing as well is I know one of the people that actually dropped out at the last minute. He's actually said to me that he's gone and done it, or going to go do a day to help out the charity, because he still sees it's important.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Everybody who attended the event, who were talking to me, said it was wonderful to have the charity there to actually feel that they're doing something. Because it's not just about the money, it's all about the people knowing about the charity. And having them there enables that ability to be able to advertise the charity in a better way than just say, we're giving this money to this organisation.
Yeah, so I think people often hear that word charity though and think that therefore there's going to be a drop in standard, there's going to be, the food that maybe is good, the venue, the talks. Dale, how did that evening compare to similar leadership dinner events that you've been to in recent times?
It's right up there, to be perfectly honest. The Lowry as a hotel is a beautiful venue, Manchester City Centre, and the room and the space that we were afforded for that whole thing, with the different areas for us to be able to break out and do the sponsorship, the sponsor conversations, was right up there with most of the things that I've been to before. There's a lot of evenings within the cybersecurity industry where it's a bunch of blokes in a pub, right, with a buffet down one side, 3-course meal, great conversation around the table, a couple of drinks. Was right up there with the quality that I've been to in some of the more established events around the country.
I'm going to say it's probably the best. There's another scenario, and I know it's a bit unfair for me, an advisor to this organisation, we're saying it, but it's a massive. It was so well done. And I know I was active in the day trying to make sure everything was going, but I had not been to one where they felt that I would always want to turn up. I guarantee if we ran another meal in Manchester, those people that attended, almost every single one will turn up. And the only reason why people wouldn't turn up is because they've got the commitments.
So yeah, so the feedback from the sponsors and the delegates was really positive of the evening, and that was great. With the charity getting £5,000, being there on the night and seeing that, a really positive impact and something really different I think we've all seen in the cyber industry. So the reason why we're here today is obviously to talk about the next events that we're doing in this series. The first one being in London on the 2nd of July. The next one being another leaders dinner in Birmingham on the 17th of September. And then lastly, finishing with our first leaders conference on the 22nd and the 23rd of October. So this is now going to another level. We've done this, we've tested it, it worked, it went down really, really well. But we're now pushing this further, now obviously ending up with a leaders conference that we intend to have 80 to 100 delegates in the room over an afternoon, an evening and then a morning. This is completely different. With the intention of all of this is that, again, we keep that commitment given to charity and good causes. When we deliver all of these events, it will be over £65,000 going to charities and good causes off the back of it. I'll ask you both separately. I'll start with you, David. What do you feel about the impact of these events on the industry as a whole?
I think the industry would be really keen. There's a number of organisations out there that run charitable offerings, but no one's really doing it on the scale that we are able to do with the sponsors that we have around the tables. So I think from an attendance point of view, from a delegate attendance point of view, it's an easy win, right? Rock up, have a couple of drinks, have a meal, put £5,000 into charity, or attend a couple of half days at a conference and put £50,000 into charity. I think from a delegate point of view, I really find it hard to understand why you wouldn't just go and talk to a few sponsors for that value as a charitable concern.
Sure. Lee, obviously from the charity side, something that's really close to your heart, obviously this was something that we spoke about initially in regards to doing these events, and now the charity and that sort of side of it has really taken over. What benefit do you think this is going to add to the charities that we can support with this event? I mean, realistically, it'll probably be 12 further charities receiving £5,000 or more. What impact do you think that's going to have?
It's massive, because let's get it right. One of the things I'm pushing to focus on is focus on charities that mean the thing to the people that attend. So looking to charities that are in the community. So not looking at the bigger charities, being a small charity. So having worked for a charity myself previously, I know that funding's hard. They're having to look out and try to find funding from many streams. The ability to be able to have somebody come along and say, here's £5,000, not based on a project, that makes a massive difference to me, because a lot of times when you get a grant for a charity, you must deliver that. And all you should do is that. The overheads don't get involved. This scenario could give them £5,000 that allow them to be able to keep things that would lose up to that point. And therefore, for me, one of the things we need to focus on is making sure that we get charities that are close to the heart of the people that attend, and making sure that they are at the level that the £5,000 is going to make a massive difference to them. And that is the community charities. And that for me is massive.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about the delegates. I think my thing, speaking to any potential sponsor, would be you're supporting something that's doing genuine good.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of cyber security events that you can do that. The return on investment is fantastic. It's way cheaper than anything else out there. It's in the nature. But also, I think as you both touched upon, the sponsors touched upon, we're offering, whether it's the small event or the larger conference event, the opportunity for every sponsor to have direct dialogue with every delegate.
Yep.
That doesn't exist. It's almost the equivalent of having a stand at an event and guaranteeing that every delegate comes to that stand, and that's what we're offering. So I think, in regards to reaching out to the delegates and sponsors, there's a pretty compelling reason for that.
Yeah.
But gents, listen, thanks for joining. It's been good to talk around it, and excited about what the announcements that are coming in the coming weeks. Should be good.